ADRS. All right, good deal, man. Your reading these diagrams pretty good. You got a pretty good memory and or background in electronics, schematics for sure. Before we go to Ron, anybody else want to just identify a component, or you got a question, or you got a comment? Maybe you want to tell us something about the phase lock loop board call now. IGE8. Tom, what do you got for us? All right. Well, I think Jim deserves to be the winner of this contest. I mean, he put the time in, the research, and come up with a real interesting analysis of that circuit. And with your help shedding light on it, why it completely confused me. Oh, I was so fascinated that there's different test points throughout this whole phase lock loop.
What the hell?
Test point 2001 to 2006. And looking through the schematic, there is dozens of. Now, what I think it is, it's probably a surface-mounted device to tune it. And why there's so many variable capacitors, whether it's just all for alignment purposes.
Oh, I hate Wi-Fi.
The guys that got to align these things or check these things, they really got to have a lot on the ball there. I'll tell you what, there's the computers that automatically do it, but I mean, there is all over the place. There's variable capacitors, it looks like. So, yeah, I'm kind of wondering why so many variable capacitors, why they couldn't be fixed, and what are the test points for? Is that something that they actually use, or is it for troubleshooting problems? All right, good. Man, some observations here. Well, first off, just talking, the whole idea here, this board produces the first injection frequency for the first IF in the radio. And so, depending on what part of the band, what band you're on, it has to, this board has to, it can only produce, the oscillator can only produce a limited range of frequencies. So in order to cover the whole HF band on this board, there are five completely separate voltage controlled oscillators. So when you select a particular frequency to operate on, the microprocessor turns on just one of those five oscillators, depending on which band you selected. So that's the first thing. That's why there's so many that you see there. There's only one used at a time, and the processor turns that one on, depending on what band you want to operate on. Now, so each one of those five oscillators, has its own tank circuit. You guys remember when you were studying somewhere along your studies of ham radio licenses, you talked about oscillators. And so for an oscillator to oscillate at a specific frequency, it has to have a tank circuit. And a tank circuit's made up of a coil and a capacitor, or a group of coils and a group of capacitors. And so, they're called varicaps. They're variable capacitors, but instead of the kind that we're used to seeing, where you physically turn a knob to change the meshing of the plates, these capacitors change value electronically, depending on what the voltage level, whatever that DC voltage is that's applied across that varicap, it's called, will determine what its actual capacitance I noticed each one of those separate voltage-controlled oscillators has two varicaps. One varicap doesn't provide enough capacitance, so they get more capacity from one device. That may be one reason. I noticed there are asterisks beside each one of those. Probably has something to do with the part number based on what frequency range that particular oscillator is going to operate at. And that probably is what determines that specific part number for that specific variable cap. And again, it's called a varicap. Same as the cap that, variable capacitor we turn where you see the plates mesh, only you don't turn these, you just apply a different voltage. As you change the DC voltage across it, it changes its capacitance. And everybody knows when you change the capacitance in a tuned circuit, the frequency of the oscillations are going to change. Again, that's the whole idea of this whole board, is to provide a real stable and accurate injection frequency for the first IF, maybe a receiver, and for other parts of the radio as well. And so it uses that phase lock loop integrated circuit that Jim had pointed out. It samples part of the output frequency of the specific oscillator that gets selected, depending on what band you selected. It samples that output, it divides it down, and then it compares that output to the reference frequency. They should be exactly the same. If they're exactly the same, that DC voltage on pin 2 of, Q2014, that's called the charge pump, it doesn't change. It stays right where it's at. But if for some reason the output of that VCO started to drift off, get a little bit off frequency, when it's compared in that phase lock loop chip with the reference frequency, which should be rock solid on, it's going to go, hey, wait a minute, we're not locked together here.
Oh, damn it.
And what's going to happen is it's going to produce a different DC voltage on pin 2, the charge pump output. And if you follow that, that gets applied to every single one of those varicaps. So as that charge pump voltage changes, you're changing the voltage across the variable capacitor, which in turn changes its value. It changes the frequency of that oscillator. And so now that's why it's called a voltage controlled oscillator, a VCO. And that should lock it right back on frequency. You won't allow it to drift off very far. So the varicaps that you see, now with reference to the test points, okay, so I'm looking, I see TP 2001, TP 2005, 2004. Okay, so I'm just looking at them here real quick. And so that is exactly what they are. They're called test points, and that's what they're used for, to make some tests. So the easiest one to look at first is TP 2005. That would be toward the bottom right, or the lower right corner of the schematic. And so if you want to measure the frequency, the main frequency coming in from a different board, by the way, and if you notice, if you trace that down, that wire comes all the way down to that connector, and it comes out on pin 2 of G2001. It says REF, reference frequency. So that frequency comes from a different board. You have to look at the block diagram to see where that's coming from. But this schematic that we're looking at says that frequency is 30.225 megahertz. So if you were in trouble with this board, or maybe you're doing an alignment, and you need to know for sure that's what that frequency is, you would put your frequency counter or a scope probe on test point 2005, and you should be measuring 30.225 megahertz there at a specific, maybe peak voltage level on a scope probe. And usually those test points are designed so that when you connect up a piece of test equipment, it doesn't load the circuit down. One of the worst things that can happen, right, is if your piece of test equipment, when you connected the probe into the circuit, operation of the circuit. That would completely mislead you as to what you're looking at. And that would be where the test equipment's loading the circuit down. It's changing it. It's actually becoming part of it, and you don't want that. You want it to appear as if it's not even there, but yet sample a voltage. In this case, you're looking at a specific frequency. And so that's what that test point 2005 is. It's a point that is a high impedance point to your test equipment so that you don't load the circuit down, and that you can measure that first frequency from that first reference frequency before the direct digital synthesizer divides it down to the 10.7 megahertz that Jim was talking about. So that's test point 2005. WB-REI just identified here. And suppose you wanted to know, was that direct digital synthesizer working properly? Well, you know it's supposed to divide the 30.225 megahertz reference frequency down to 10.7 megahertz. So now you can move your frequency counter and or scope probe to test point 2004, which is on the output of that ceramic filter Jim just described. And now you can measure it right there and see if it's 10, now instead of 30.225, it should be 10.7 megahertz. You can check that right there. Now, a really important test point, let's see if I can find it here, would be the one where you set the actual, there it is, test point 2002. It's about right in the dead center of the schematic. Test point 2002. And that is right off pin 2 of the phase lock loop chip. That's the charge pump output. That's the DC voltage that gets applied to all those varicaps. And when you're aligning a voltage controlled oscillator, you're gonna select that oscillator, and you're gonna put a DC voltmeter on test point 2002, and you're going to adjust. You're going to make adjustment of an inductor in this case, in the specific oscillator. You're going to make an adjustment, and you're going to be looking for a specific voltage at test point 2002. What it does is it sets up the charge pump range, the DC voltage range, so that it tracks properly as the oscillator changes the frequency. And there's actually, well, the manual is really detailed about the adjustment of the voltage controlled oscillator. As a matter of fact, I'm just looking at here, for example, the first VCO1, in the alignment instructions, you attach your DC voltmeter to this point, we just said, point 2002, and you adjust the coil L2004. My eyes on L2004, that's in the first VCO in the tank circuit. You adjust that coil from 5.1 volts. Now listen to this, 5.1 volts plus or minus 1/10 of a volt. So it's very important you got to get that right on the money. And then you can also measure the output with an RF millivoltmeter. And that's showing here, in this case, you're talking about the output of the phase lock loop itself. It should be at least 3 dBm. If you had an RF millivoltmeter that measured a dBm, or even a spectrum analyzer for that matter, you would terminate into that test equipment, and that's the level that the output of the VCO should be. Went on here, but so you're right on there, Ron. The test points definitely to make measurements for troubleshooting purposes and or to do alignment. All right, now anything else on that, Ron?
Nope, that explains a lot. You know, my technical background did not include any Vericaps that automatically change the capacitance according to the input. It's just, wow. How they come up with this stuff, it's incredible.
hours every day, you know, and have fun with them and that. But to dig into them and to see how they work, it really is something. All right, very good. Anybody else? Any comments or queries or anybody else wants to get on the sheet, call now. Okay, I'm just looking at the sheets here. So we got a runoff here. So Ron's got 3 points, Jim's got 3 points. Jim had 1 point in a QQI, and we're going to talk to Jim here in a second. Let's do a quick runoff. Here's how we're going to do it. Real simple. I'm going to put between 1 and 100. Between 1 and 100. You got to trust me now. I'll pick the number between 1 and 100. Let me write it down. All right. Ron, pick a number between 1 and 100. Whoever the closest gets it. 73. Hey, Ron, pick 73. Jim, pick a number between 1 and 100. 50. Oh, wow. All right. I picked 32. So it looks like Jim's our winner. He's closer with 50. So, Jim, you'll be seeing a lotto card, and hopefully you'll hit the jackpot. And the next time we talk to you, you'll be sailing out on the ocean in your new sailboat. You know, I'm just amazed here at the difference between the way radios used to be and what they are now. This thing is so complicated versus the old type radios and even the schematics on both of them. Much easier in the past. Anyway, back to you, KE8EN. There's no doubt it was easier. They were easier to understand for sure. But we wouldn't be able to have all the cool, neat stuff that we got today if they didn't have all that technology. Maybe we wouldn't have all those awesome spectrum scopes and color displays and great sound and audio and, you know, all that neat stuff. You know, antenna tuners built into your radio. All right, very good. You guys did a really good job. I really enjoyed doing it because I'm learning a little bit about all these different radios that we've talked about. I mean, there's no way we can go into cover everything. My God, you'd spend a lifetime doing that. But we get to dabble into them just a little bit. Now, NAQQI, we're going to talk about the Kenwood TS450. Jim's got one, and let's save it for next Wednesday. That will be our schematic for starting next week. Let's do that, and we'll talk about Jim's TS450, specifically the phase lock loop board. That's what we're going to be looking at. So another phase lock loop board, only in a different radio. I got a chance to look at it. It's really complex. All what's going on in that Kenwood TS450, older technology, but definitely interesting. So we'll make a note, Jim. We're going to cover that next week. I'm going to jump in here real quick. We're getting ready to wrap it up anyway. We'll cover that next week just a little bit, Jim. And then I think I'm going to switch gears into what I think is pretty popular. Everybody's at one time or another crossed paths with the Astron power supply. So we're going to talk about the Astron power supply, specifically the RS70, the Astron RS70 power supply. And we'll do that after next week because we want to talk about Jim's radio next week. So that'll be the plan to give you time to look over the Astron RS70, find a schematic. They're all over the internet. And we'll have some fun with that. I think we'll identify some components, talk about how it works, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit there too. it's time to wrap it up. Okay, I gotta list this off here real quick. If you're a shortwave radio listener, and nowadays everybody covers the shortwave bands in your own amateur radio, right? They're really basically general coverage receivers. So a lot of cool stuff goes on the shortwave radio. I always like listening when I'm in the shack, I'm working on something or whatever. I'll tune one of these stations in. If you got a paper pencil handy, maybe you jot one down and take a listen. You might find that you really enjoy it, especially if you're in your radio room there and you're just kind of hanging out. So here's a list of some, what I found to be pretty good. You can get good signals on a decent antenna and entertaining and interesting stuff. WID here real quick, WBREI, North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Desk. So, Friday mornings is a great time at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on 15.770 megahertz AM. There's a really cool program called Shortwave Radiogram, and they will start out talking with some explanation of what's going on, and then they're going to do the rest of the program in MFSK 32 and MFSK 64. So you can decode that digital information using FL Digi or any other program that will decode MFSK 32 or MFSK 64. It is really neat. The articles, there's usually a couple articles that are super interesting. You watch them, they pop right up on your screen, and there's images that get transmitted, beautiful artwork, just a really entertaining program with a little bit of music and some cool artwork that gets transmitted right at the beginning of the program. So again, that starts every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, it's called Shortwave Radiogram. Kim Andrew Elliott used to be a Voice of America radio person, and now he does this program and does an excellent job. So there you go, 9 a.m. Friday mornings, 15.770 megahertz AM. I usually just flip it on my 20-meter dipole, and it comes in really good. Still hanging around in the ham shack. That particular program just runs 30 minutes. Then Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so about another hour and a half later, there's a neat program called Wave Scan. It is also on the same frequency, 15.770 megahertz AM. The broadcasting station is called WRMI. They're out of Florida. And this is a great program to listen to. All kinds of things they talk about on that program. Again, that starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. Now on Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you'd like to listen to the greatest hits of all time, you can listen to WRMI legend Steve Hunter. He's the DJ. He used to DJ for CKLW back in the 70s. He'll be the DJ there. It starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 5.050 megahertz AM. They run until midnight, and then at midnight they change frequencies to 9.455 megahertz, and then they run until 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. To listen to, you can send a request in. That you would have to do via the internet. But just to listen to the program, it's great music and nice to have on in the radio shack when you're listening on your shortwave late. Now just two more. Really cool. Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Ted Randall QSO radio show. Again, it begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's on 5.050 megahertz AM. That program lasts about 2 hours, and he has different people on there that he interviews. He talks about all kinds of ham radio related stuff. Ted Randall's really good. So check it out Monday nights, 9 p.m. 5.050 megahertz AM. Next one, Thursday nights, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Rita's Ham Shack. And I don't know if any of you know Rhea, but she is really knowledgeable. She covers just about anything and everything you can think of in ham radio. She's really fun to listen to on shortwave radio. So tune her in at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday nights. Again, she's also on 5.050 megahertz AM. And her program runs about 1 hour. Other than that, weekend's a North American QSO party. It's the CW portion of the contest. It begins Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, runs until Sunday at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your exchange here in Ohio, you just give your name and the state that you're in. So I would say Jeff, Ohio. And then the whole object, of course, is just to work other North American stations. They do the same. They'll give either their state or their country or their province. And anybody that's not in North America will just give their name. So now you know the exchange. To know more about how you score and all the multipliers and all that kind of stuff, you just look up all the rules for the North American QSO party. Now, if you don't know CW really good, you don't know it very well, but you're just kind of learning it, there's a good time just to kind of tune in, see what you can copy. Because really, the exchanges are very brief. It's just a name and a state or section or province. And you can pick out some letters, maybe get some words, and really, it will really help you hone your CW skills. So take a listen. It should be a good time. Again, that starts Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the North American QSO party, and it's the CW portion of the contest. All right, I think we covered enough. Everybody's fried out, starving, hungry. My throat's dry. I'm ready to call today. Before I do, is there anybody that would like to make any announcements? Doesn't have to be amateur radio related. Anything you want to announce here where we got everybody's attention, call now. Maybe you can announce. I've got a question for you, Jeff. Go ahead, Bob. On the 6-meter nets coming from Toledo, I got everything written down, but the last one on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., what was the frequency? Is that sideband or FM? Go ahead. Yeah, the one on Thursday nights, apparently every Thursday night at 9 p.m. is on 50.255 megahertz upper sideband. And it supposedly it's a net. They call it a net. It doesn't have a name. It just says 50.225 megahertz upper sideband net. And that's Thursdays at 9 p.m. Okay, QSO. Thank you, WAJBT. 88PX. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I looked and I don't see that certificate from the Enigma machine. Who sent that to you? Was it you gave a name? Could I have that again, please?
Well, let me, I don't have it right in front of me. After the net here, Ron, I'll dig it, I'll find all the info, and I will pass it right to, I'll just email it to you, okay? I got your email address.
Oh, that'd be fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate your net, Jeff.
Hey, no problem, Ron. Thanks for participating. You make it interesting. And yeah, I'll find that info, email it to you. Maybe that'll help you find it. It might be buried maybe in your junk mail somewhere. Maybe it, got passed like that or something. But I'll send you the info I got, and hopefully you'll find it there. All right. Anything else, Ron?
That's it. KAPX.
Okay, KAPX is that. WBAREI. And WAGBT, thanks, Bob, for all your information and for all your help this morning. Thanks to Ron. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to Pat. Thanks to Jim. And thanks to Lenny. We got a long list of people here that really contribute here. And thanks to everybody that checked in. You guys all make it a great net. One last chance. Anybody, anything else? Kilo 8, Charlie, Victor, Mike, Mobile, Chuck, check. Hey, Charlie, Victor, Mike, Mobile. I got you checked in. Chuck, you made it right at the closing bell. Good to hear you this morning. You were probably trying to get in through the whole net, but it's tough to get in with somebody that yaks as much as I do. Anyway, you squeaked in here. Thanks, man. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm eating a couple of hot dogs in AQQY.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, Jim. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I was kind of prepared to go over that your board there too, but we're pressing. We get so up against the time window here. I didn't want to keep everybody here too much longer, and I wanted to give you a chance, so we could talk about the Kenwood TS 450. So we'll save it for next week. It should be a good time. We'll just a deep dive on the TS 450 PLL board. It should be pretty interesting.
You remember that guy who ham operator in Fort Wayne who repaired radios? His first name's Kevin. He sold out of his house, bought a Class C motorhome nights hanging around out in the deserts. But he done a series on them things, fixing the board in the 450 a couple of years ago.
I didn't know Kevin. But I kind of think I might know who you're talking about. If you did a video, I might know who you're talking about there. And that's interesting because it's always good to go back and look at what might have been a common problem in those radios and what they did to correct it. I'll do a little research and dig into that a little bit. Well, let me close with that here. This is WB8REI. This is the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Here next week at 10:15 a.m. for the North Information and Traffic Net. Have a good week. Listen to the shortwave radio. Listen to some of the programs. And don't forget CW Operators North American QSO Party this weekend. 73s, WB8REI. The net are now clear here, and we get longer every time. 1241. 73s, everybody.
Great, Jeff. You can look him up. His first name's Kevin. Look him up on YouTube. See some of his videos.
I'll do that, Jim. And like I said, I think I know what you're talking about. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'll scope that out before next week, and then we can all kind of be on the same page a little bit there. All right, enjoy the lunch. I'm gonna go see what Mom's got cooking. 73, Jim. That ain't QQY WB8REI. Hey,
Take care, Jeff.
go ahead, Jim. I'll check your hotline. Talk to you later. KEADRN. I will, Jim. I'll check it there. I probably missed your call. My ringer might even be turned down. All right. Thank you for the heads up, WB8REI.
And signing out. Sorry about that first pass. Part 1. A stampede of people ran through my Wi-Fi. At least they were quiet. Okay, guys. See you next week. Lenny, N8XLQ, Huron City. Clearing off YouTube now.